You're about to hear from brothers Eric and Jack as they exchange ideas and learn from the most calculated real estate entrepreneurs in the business today. This is Tangible Assets, the new rules of real estate.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Eric Eichhoff, my brother Jack, and Mitch Seiffert. We are not live in our studio today. We are coming here from our houses in the midst of the coronavirus to film episode 5 of Tangible Assets. I am super excited today. So we have our guest Mitch. We're all here trying to be safe, trying to make sure that we're part of the solution. Not part of the problem with really what's going on with this pandemic. So we're taking a little bit of time today to talk about some safety stuff and talk about some insurance and get a pros tip on what you can do to make sure that you set yourself up next time you have kind of a sticky situation at your property. You're set up for a smooth as possible transition. So what do I mean by that? I mean, I brought up a couple examples. The first thing I'm going to show you is a flooded house. So what happens when, this is probably a little extreme, this is dramatized, when one of your properties, when this happens. Or what happens when this happens, when you have a fully, this is again, maybe more dramatized, fully burned out home. Mitch spent about 8 years running a business where they would go through and repair flood damage, fire damage, emergency situation homes. Mitch also is a property owner himself, has a rental portfolio, and really just has some really solid advice for whether you are a homeowner or a rental property owner. So Mitch, without further ado, welcome to our show. Thank you for taking some time this Friday, April 10th, to join us.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be on the call today. I think we're making history with the 5th recording, so I'm excited about that.
Right at the beginning here, yeah. Glad to have you, Mitch. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. So Mitch, tell us craziest story. You know, if you look back at going through your days, and now I know you're adjusting to more of a full-time investor and remodeler, but from your days in restoration, where you pulled up to something, and I just want to start off with something that just to help our viewers get their minds around.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely encountered a number of things. Some things that you don't want to necessarily talk about at the dinner table. But I'd say one of the things that definitely comes to mind is, we did a lot with, fire damage and water damage. And we had this particular house in the Southern Metro, and they had just had a fire, and it just so happened to be that the tenant was a snake breeder. So there was literally hundreds and hundreds of, unfortunately, dead snakes through this entire house that had succumbed to the smoke and heat. And
was this in Fire Lake?
I think it was. I think it was. I'm trying to remember exactly where it was, but it was. Everybody in the office was talking about this one.
Was it on like a Franklin Avenue or something?
Boy, I couldn't tell you that.
I swear I've heard this story from someone else that might have. Yeah. Was it a row of townhomes?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I
might have sold this property to the owner at the time.
It could be. I
think I've heard this story from the other side, from the owner's perspective, possibly.
Yeah, it was interesting. We really divided the men from the boys, and who was going into that house and deal with these snakes, because they weren't all dead. Oh. So yeah, it was quite an ordeal. Obviously, very devastating for the snake breeder, but certainly one to remember.
Okay, so what happens now? The place is totally damaged. Snakes are dead. What's next?
Yeah. First and foremost, when you're running into a scenario like that where you've had fire damage or water damage, is securing the property. Making sure that things don't get worse, because one thing that you do need to understand is you, as the insurance policyholder, you are responsible for making sure that that property doesn't get into any worse condition than it actually already is. So for instance, with fire, contacting a restoration company or contractor to get the place secured, boarded up, so that if the fire department had to bust down some doors and you can't lock the place, just making sure that it's not going to get worse. Typically, what people see and don't realize is that there's in many instances a lot of water that gets used to put out some of these fires. There's a number of different ways they put them out, but so when you do go into a house that has had a fire, you tend to be mucking around in a lot of water and muck, and it gets pretty dirty. So being able to get that stuff out of there as quickly as possible to minimize the long-term damage of the property is key. So, but yeah, so securing the property.
So what happens if your property is fire damaged, and then they'll only insure that, and then if more damage happens to the property, you're out of luck?
Yeah, you definitely could be held liable in the event that you didn't get on it in a timely manner.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too many insurance carriers that are just major sticklers to that, but if for whatever reason you took a number of days to secure the property, and you got some people that got into the place and started stealing all the copper out of it or something like that, that may be something that they don't cover. So it is important that it does get secured so it doesn't get worse, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Mitch, anyone that is listening to this and was thinking about getting into the property restoration business, I think that story just probably pushed them off the fence the other way. They're probably
sure. Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
So a question for you, because you know a little bit about this. So renter's insurance, what's your opinion on it? Should you, as a renter, should you get it? As a landlord, should you require it? And why? What have you seen, the good, the bad, and the ugly with this?
Yeah, great question. And my answer to that is yes and yes, absolutely. As a renter, you should have it. As a landlord, you should require it. And the reason I say that is because I've seen all too often cases where renters didn't have renter's insurance. One, as a property owner, creates a lot of problems. And then I guess I'll talk to that in a bit. But then as a renter, it's very inexpensive. It's something that it's $10 a month, somewhere in that range. 10 to $13 a month, right? And what you don't really think about when you think about your personal belongings, that's another reason why, whether you're a renter or owner, making sure you got good what they call personal contents coverage. What you don't necessarily think about is all the things that may have to take place with your personal contents, even if you aren't replacing them. So as a renter, if for whatever reason the structure got wet to a point where there was a fair amount of reconstruction that needed to take place, or there was a fire, so rooms had to be packed out. What they're not necessarily thinking about is the fact that all those personal belongings have to be moved. They potentially have to be professionally deodorized. They have to be potentially stored while the structure is being repaired. They have to move back, and depending on the insurance carrier, they may have to get completely restaged, as well as anything that can't be restored, getting replaced.
I got a question about the renter's insurance. So okay, it's super cheap. My understanding is it just covers the tenant's belongings that are inside the unit. if anything gets damaged. But like, do the tenants, when they sign up for these policies, have to catalog everything that they own and stick a value to it? Or how do they,
Um,
how can you just say
no,
like, oh, hey, I burnt my laptop burnt in the fire. You can't find it. And it has all these expensive files from videos I shoot or something, you know? Like,
yeah, yeah. The more, from my experience on the more documentation you have on the stuff, the easier it's going to be. The insurance carrier is going to give some of their guidelines in terms of, what they're going to expect to be able to see and what kind of documentation that you might have. And, depending on your insurance carrier, some are probably going to be a little more sticklers about it than others will be. So yeah, it's typically what insurance carriers are going to recommend is that, you are taking a video or photos of your house periodically to be able to have some sort of proof of it.
Okay.
I know there
Mitch,
are.
how about for the owner? What's the benefit for the owner
That's a good
to make
question.
sure that their renters have it?
Yeah, well, part of renter's insurance that you can get also is loss of use insurance. And you can get that as an owner as well as a renter. So what that covers, and I'm not an insurance agent or broker or anything of that sort, so I would definitely encourage everybody to talk to their insurance agents about this. Yeah. But it does cover if that tenant has to move out for a period of time, right? So from an owner's perspective, if that tenant has to move out, they're not going to want to pay rent. And they're not going to be able to pay rent because they're going to be needing to pay for living elsewhere. Now, hopefully they have loss of use insurance with their renter's insurance policy, which is, again, very, very inexpensive, so that, they're covered. Their insurance company can pay for additional rent needed, that type of thing. But if they don't, they aren't going to be in a position to pay rent. So by being able to have that in place, you're protecting your income stream.
So you're saying if the tenants get loss of use coverage, that's like a rider on a policy,
Yeah.
and then they get a payment from the insurance company to stay in another place, and you as the owner also get what their regular monthly rent would be?
You probably wouldn't get what their number or what their rent would be. Yeah, so that would be within your own insurance policy.
Oh, okay.
So, one thing to be making sure that you're talking with your insurance agent on is that you do have loss of use as a rider on your insurance policy, so that, if your tenants have to move out, that you're still getting rent. Because obviously, whether you had a fire in your place or not, if you still have a mortgage on the place, you're still going to have to continue to pay that.
Yeah. I'm curious about the restoration stuff. Like, if something disastrous were to happen, you just phone up a restoration company and they'll jump on it? Or do you think like, are people proactively, building relationships with these guys and companies, or how important is that?
Yeah, great question. And I'll definitely say that Paul Davis Restoration is the company to call. I'll put that plug in there.
Paul Davis, you can sponsor us for this episode.
Absolutely. No, I would definitely recommend that you do some proactive relationship building in this. We went through the polar vortex last year, and because of the volume that we were experiencing as a restoration company, we were in a position that we only serviced customers that we already had a relationship with. There was way too much volume. We literally had one person sitting in an office taking phone calls, telling people, no, we can't help you, but here's what you can do. Because it was like, we really protected our existing relationships. Because we had to make sure that we were there for them when they needed us. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend getting some relationships built on that front. Obviously, if you've got just a handful of units, there's definitely space to be able to vet some restoration companies in the event that this were to
So, okay, what does it mean to have a relationship with a restoration company? Because I I just hope that I don't ever have to call Paul Davis more than once.
Yep,
So are these the
absolutely.
people who've called them once before and said, hey, we need you out here? Or are these just like handshake with sales or ownership team and like just know them
Yeah,
well? Or what does that mean to have a relationship with them?
yeah, it is really just that handshake.
Okay.
Yeah, it's getting to know them. It's getting to understand, who do I call in the middle of the night? What's the phone number? What's the process? Some restoration companies will do, even, depending on the size of property you're dealing with, they'll do emergency action planning with you, to assist you in the event that you did have a loss at one of your properties. Usually that's when you get into apartment complexes and that type of things. But yeah, but I'd say probably the bigger thing, especially if you're just getting started with a few units, is make sure you understand your insurance policy.
Yeah.
Make sure it's covered, because if you got a good insurance policy, a good insurance company that you're working with, it'll be stressful on the front end of things because you've obviously never been through something like this.
Yeah.
Being able to work with a reputable restoration company will help the process tremendously.
Yeah.
But if you do have a good insurance policy, you're going to be responsible for your deductible, and the rest in most cases is going to be covered.
Gotcha.
Assuming you didn't start the fire yourself.
Assuming you didn't commit arson.
Yeah. I mean, it, to be honest with you, a lot of the projects that we did, a fire was the best thing that happened to those houses. So I'll be honest, I'm sitting in a duplex of mine right now that when I bought it, the water heater tripped out and started smoldering. And I stood there checking my ethics at the door going, do I let this thing go up in smokes or do I shut this thing off? And I did shut it off. So just for the record, because I was like, this could be the best thing that happens to this place. Just smoke it out and remodel it.
So Mitch, you're an investor as well. Do you think properties that are burned out or have a ton of water damage, are those good investment properties? When people just like walk away and they don't, it's just a total loss.
They can be. They can be. I was just looking at one actually today, and you do definitely need to know what you're doing. Because what you gotta recognize is that, especially with fires, you definitely have to disclose that there was a fire. And Eric, you'd know more about this than I would, but so you need to know what you're doing for sure, or be working with a restoration company that knows what they're doing, because any property can be restored. It's a matter of, do the numbers make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So they definitely can be a good good investment. Like I say,
So the one that you were looking at today, are you buying it or did you pass on it?
Well, we haven't made that decision yet. So
What are they asking?
Well, I'll definitely keep that confidential at this time.
Yeah, what's the address, Mitch?
Yeah, right. What's the address? Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to get some deals done myself.
Love it. So, from the investor side, well, we're on that. So Mitch, tell us, how many properties have you, bought and exited? Are you fix and flip? Are you buy and hold? What's your strategy? And what is where are you going with your portfolio?
Yeah. Well, up until about three months ago or so, I've been heavily actively involved with Paul Davis. And that's where I've spent a good majority of my time. So real estate investing has been kind of a side thing, place for me to live, while at the same time long-term investment. So I mean, the first property that I purchased was back in 2009. It was a duplex, and moved into that one. It was a foreclosed property. It sounds real smart, but I got real lucky. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. But yeah, we got a real good deal on the thing, moved into one side of it, homesteaded it, and got a, 30-year fixed, loan on the thing. So, that was my first one. Lived there for a couple years, and then still own that today. Bought another duplex, the one that I'm sitting in now, in 2014. And yeah, did a major renovation on the thing. And to the point that I decided, based off of the rent that I was able to get, I couldn't afford to live in my own place. I had to go live somewhere else because the rental market was hot enough that I didn't want to give up on that. And then let's see, outside of that, minority owner in a small commercial property as well in St. Paul that I've had the privilege of jumping on the shoulders of some bigwigs that know what they're doing. So I've been kind of able to kind of jump in and be a part of something and watch it unfold that I haven't had to actively, be involved with. So right now I'm looking to put more energy into, actively investing in the real estate world.
What's more interesting to you, the commercial or the residential side?
That's a good question. I'm definitely more familiar with the residential side. I think for the scalability, the commercial side is more intriguing to me in that sense. But I don't know if it's necessarily if one or the other. From some of the individuals in the industry that have got substantially more experience than I do, that have had a chance to pick their brains. Some of the advice they've given me is, you just got to get started somewhere. And through that, you'll get opportunities at, bigger projects and that type of thing. So, that's some of the things that I've been reading on as well.
Why do you say, do you self-manage that? Obviously you say you're a silent investor, you're not active. Do you guys hire a property manager for the commercial property? Yeah. There is do you feel like it's more scalable, or why? Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. That's from the I guess from my experience and what I've been taught around it is, when you're first getting started, it is wise to be your own property manager. Just for the cash flow perspective of it, but then also being able to understand, what property management is all about and what you can expect from your property management company when you get to that point. Yeah, definitely. And who are your tenants at the commercial property? Like, what type of tenant, I guess? Yeah. So we've got, the property's got three or four commercial spaces, and we've actually got a food shelf in there. We've got let's see, an immigration office in there. Someone else using one of the garages for just a workshop, and then it's got 4 apartments as well, which have all been 1-bedroom apartments that have rented out. They're very nice, actually. We did a full renovation on those. And they rented up right away and have stayed occupied for the last 3-4 years since we've got the property. Yeah. So I will say, obviously we're in the heat of the stay-at-home order with COVID-19 and everything going on. Have you felt any financial distress from your tenants? Has anyone reached out to you about inability to pay or anything like that in this time? Not yet. Not yet. It's definitely already affected me. Because I was trying to buy a duplex in St. Paul that was contingent upon some tenants moving out. And this property was very dirty, dingy property, and the seller probably didn't have as high of standards as I might have with who they rented to. So they weren't able to get the tenants out for obvious reasons with COVID. So unfortunately, it looks like that deal might be falling through. But with my current tenants, my strategy, especially with real estate being something that has been more of a passive
long-term investment for me. The properties that I do have, I fixed them up nice. I wanted to put them in a certain condition that I would want to live in the house, and ironically now I have lived in them all anyways. But
that's a really good point you said right there, because I manage property, and I think the best way to go about it is to make the unit to a level that's acceptable for you to live in it.
mm-hmm.
I see a lot of I have seen a fair number of investors who are like, oh yeah, I could totally picture some college kids shacking up here,
Yep. Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
no. I think that's a good way to go about it. Is ask yourself, would you live there? And if you can honestly say yes, then.
Yeah. Well, everybody's got their strategy, right? So there's not necessarily a right or wrong way to do it, but I just don't like, pain in the butt stuff, So I've, the approach that I've taken is make them nice, make it something that I would be fine living in. And I think that's actually voted very well for me in this particular pandemic that we're in, because the properties were done up nice, and you do hear it quite frequently of when someone's fixing up a rental, it's like, oh, it's just a rental, but that hasn't been my approach. And in fact, if I had subcontractors saying that, I'd be like, yeah, you got, like, I'm not doing work with you. You don't understand how I do this. But because I've taken that approach, I've been able to hold a high standard for the tenants that I've had in the houses. And I think that has helped a lot with, at least in this time so far. That certainly could change, and nobody's completely vulnerable to this coronavirus thing, but they haven't had a major impact on their income, and they've got some savings set aside, and with the exception of one that always pays me a little bit late, but pays the late fee and keeps trucking forward. He's been with me for like 6 years, so I got no problem with that.
So Mitch, when you're investing in properties, what do you think it is? And if you're investing with other people, what is your skill set? What do you bring to the table? What is your strength? And sometimes, it's construction, sometimes it's financing, sometimes it's cash, sometimes it's just operations or management.
Yeah.
Like, what do you feel is something that you've been gifted with? If there's someone on this call that's investing with you, why would they want to invest with you?
Good question.
I'm a numbers guy. I have the background in restoration and property renovations. So I've exposed myself to that, and in addition to being a numbers guy, I'm a systems guy, right? So it's something that I'm going to want to break down that project into all its individual components. To where I know, if I'm doing a project, I know that it's costing me $34.47 every single day that the thing is not occupied, right? For example, right? And that's how I operate in that respect. I tend to be a big problem solver as well. I mean, we were looking at a property a couple of days ago that the foundation just completely had failed. To where it's like we'd have to look at jacking the house up and redoing the whole foundation, resetting this house back down, and something like that. I'm like, I'll figure it out. I don't know if I'll make any money right away, but I'll figure it out. And so, I mean, sometimes that doesn't always isn't always the best approach. You got to make sure the numbers make sense too. But I guess that's probably why combining that with the numbers is probably a good thing. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, I tend to look at things from a 10,000 foot level. I can certainly manage projects. For any of those project managers that have reported to me over the years, they know that there's better project managers out there than me. But I can certainly do it just from just connecting and finding good tradespeople to get the work done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have that BS-o-meter, I call it. You worked with enough tradespeople where if someone tells you like, gives you a price for sanding the floors at $10 a square foot, you're like, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, it's cheaper than that. That price is,
Yeah.
you can call BS on it, right? I think
Yeah.
that's an important skill
Abs-
that you only,
absolutely.
when
Yeah,
you,
absolutely. No, I've got a lot of spreadsheets, and and so if it doesn't fit with the model financially, it's like, well, we're gonna need to talk or look at finding another resource, because at the end of the day, if you're not making money, what's it be doing it for?
yeah, yeah, 100%. So Mitch, we're gonna kind of wrap a couple things up here. What I want you to think about, so advice, for new people that are getting into the business, and then maybe just because of the climate and where we are right now, just some safety. If you have any good safety tips, because I know you were kind of a safety, part of a safety company before, that you could share with,
Yeah,
with our listeners.
yeah. Yeah, I would say for anybody that's listening on this, that you're starting in the right place, which is you're educating yourself. And so I'd really encourage you just to continue to ask questions. There's not those dumb. There's not a dumb question. I mean, I suppose there is, but the reality is that there's a lot of people that have done what you're trying to do, and it's very easy to start trying to compare yourself to other people. And the fact of the matter is that as real estate investors, you tend to primarily talk about your winners. You don't always talk about the losers. So you think that everybody else is just crushing it. So I just encourage you to, ask a lot of questions. Don't compare yourself to other people. Do what you like doing, what you feel comfortable with, and continue to learn. Because there's always going to be a bigger fish in the pond, somebody that's doing a bigger project, a bigger deal, doing it faster, doing it better. So just kind of set that ego aside, and so I just encourage you to ask questions and get started. You'll make mistakes. That's part of the learning. But if you do surround yourself with good people, you'll hopefully minimize some of those mistakes, and they won't be too terribly detrimental. So you can take that into your next project.
Yeah.
As far as safety goes, yeah, I mean, definitely, if you're going out and checking out on projects, I'm definitely very cautious about making sure you're utilizing extra sanitizer. Use the respirators if you've got them. The N95 masks, from what I understand, and I'm certainly no health professional, but any mask will help you at least stop touching your face, which sounds like where most of this stuff is coming from.
Yeah.
And so just be smart, and obviously be respectful of people that you may be coming into their homes. So make sure you're giving plenty of notice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's great. Well, Mitch, that's a wrap. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Some really great tips. What we'll do is if someone has questions for Mitch, we'll get you in contact with them. This is episode 5 of Tangible Assets. We are coming live from our homes. I think the next few episodes we'll be doing this just to make sure that we stay safe. But as always, thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you, and good luck, and stay safe.
All right, elbow 5. See you guys.
Oh yeah.
Assets so tangible,